Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Joe Tyrrell and welcome back to GP Blog. It's Sunday, the 26th of November 2023, which means, Toby, the Formula 1 season is over. Max Verstappen has cleaned up the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Another emphatic performance. Never in doubt though, was it?
No, I think we've said it almost every week in like the whole season that our main prediction is going to be Verstappen because of how dominant he's been. And that was just on show again today. Fastest lap, got the win, maximum points, and it's what we expect, like you said.
Yeah, it was simply dominant. Once he held off Leclerc into turn one, didn't really have much of a chance, did he, Leclerc? Like he was 17 seconds behind at the checkered flag.
Yeah, it looked like Leclerc used a lot of power to keep up with Max in the first few corners, obviously trying to get the overtake done and then have Max basically do the work. Because as they entered the final kind of 3 or 4 turns, Verstappen just pulled away. And by that point, it's clear that Leclerc had used up power and had to recharge. So then that allowed him to just get slightly further away. And then it was easy enough for Verstappen like usual.
Yeah, it was completely and utterly dominant. Although earlier in the weekend, Red Bull weren't so sure, were they? In fact, Max even had a bet with Helmut Marko that he wouldn't start on the front row, and then he ended up on pole.
Well, I didn't actually see that, but that is interesting.
Yeah,
we
I
have
think
seen
I
it in a
saw-
few like practice sessions and even some of the qualifyings and sprint races, for example, so there have been other people with pace to potentially fight with Red Bull, but it seems as though that wasn't too much of an issue when it came to qualifying as he got pole and then stormed away today.
Yeah, the Red Bull pulled it out of the bag when it mattered. It's been interesting to see Leclerc certainly over. I think he's had 3 of the last 4 pole positions. I think off the top of my head, Leclerc really has come on strong the last 4 weeks. But the race pace of that Red Bull with Max at the wheel is different gravy. Like no one can keep up with it.
No, and it's also a testament to him as a driver. People say, "Oh, imagine Lewis Hamilton in the Red Bull or Leclerc in the Red Bull," but Verstappen still has to be at the top of his game and an amazing driver in order to actually perform in that car. Because if, for example, Logan Sargent was in the car, he probably wouldn't do anywhere near as well as Verstappen would. So it's testament to him, both him as a driver and also the work that they've done developing the car, basically before the season even started.
Yeah, absolutely. So that begs the question, Toby. Is this the most dominant season in Formula 1 history by any driver or team? What do you think?
Without a doubt. Singapore being the only race that wasn't won by Red Bull, and then Verstappen winning all but
19
3
of
races.
22.
Yeah.
And Checo, bear in mind, Checo won 2 of those in the first 4 races.
Yeah, it's mental. If Verstappen had won at Singapore, then he would have won every single race since Baku, I'd like to say.
So he didn't win Baku. He then won Miami. And then everyone apart from that, apart from Singapore.
Yeah. I mean, it's just incredible to think of how it's also weird because people were getting, I'd say, a bit fed up with him winning. But then as other teams started coming back into the mix, it got exciting again. And then people realized actually how good Verstappen was. And it didn't, like, this season has been a bit, we don't want to say boring, but it's been different to what we're used to because no one obviously has been this dominant. But all credit to Red Bull and Verstappen because I don't think we'll see this again anytime soon unless it's next year when Verstappen wins 20 plus potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to do it over the course of a 22 race season is just absurd. Like, all right, Schumacher 100% podium record in 2002, if I remember rightly, 17 out of 17. That's great. But Max has won 19 out of 22 races. He has won more races in a single season than any other driver has got podiums in a year. That is absurd. And he got that last weekend in Vegas.
Yeah, it's mental. I think he only missed out on 1 podium the whole season. I think at least. Yeah. But that being said, it's also been quite a down year for some other popular faces like Lewis Hamilton, for example, who hasn't won a race in 2 seasons now. That's also another proving point of how good Red Bull and Verstappen are, because they've stopped a 7-time world champion from winning this whole season. Maybe that's because the Mercedes isn't where it used to be, but they've still got a car that can produce podiums. But because of how good Red Bull and Verstappen are, basically that number one spot has been sealed off the whole year.
Yeah, that's the thing. The Red Bull has been so good that the potential crashes or collisions or reliability issues have been completely nerfed because Max has been 10, 15, 20 seconds ahead every race. Like, he's never been in danger of having an incident with a driver challenging him, really, has he? Like, every race has been, other than one or two, every race has been 15, 20 seconds clear.
Well, he only got his first penalty points in Vegas for the 5-second penalty at the start. That's his only penalty points the whole season. So it just shows how flawless he's been up until one slight error on the opening lap of the penultimate race. It's mental.
Really, really impressive stuff from Max Verstappen, sorry. But let's have a look at what else went on. Lewis Hamilton had a stinky weekend. He did not have a good time in Abu Dhabi, whereas Russell, he got that P3 to ensure Mercedes finished second in the standings.
Yeah, it's a good weekend for Russell and Mercedes as a team. Hamilton won't be happy, but I think he probably will still be happy because the team's done well. He's been quite good at still celebrating with the team, which is what they want to see in the end. But the one thing which I thought was quite good was the final results for the P4 battle in the drivers' standings, whereas it ended with Fernando Alonso and Charles Leclerc finishing on the same points and Lando Norris finishing 1 point off. So there's 1 point between fourth and sixth, which is crazy because no one would have probably even put any money on that at the start of the year. And if Fernando Alonso had just come one place lower, then Lando Norris would have been ahead of him. So it's quite a cool battle that we've seen at the end of the season.
That's been where the excitement's been in the second half, since probably Austria, where McLaren got back in business. That's where the fun has been, really, hasn't it? In those P2, arguably down to P6, because you've had a lot of different teams. And I, for one, I said it was a flash in the pan for McLaren. I didn't think they would come back, but they've maintained that form. And imagine what they could have done at the start of the season if they had that car.
Well, yeah, if they had the car for the whole year, then I reckon Lando Norris would have been fighting for P2 potentially, because he's only ended up being 80 points behind Sergio Perez, which, if he was able to fight for the first 10 races, actually like fight at the top half of the points, that gap could easily come down very quickly. So that's a good point you brought up there. If McLaren did have a good car, I think we'd see Piastri a lot higher up as well. He's finished in 9th, but I'd say the best of the rest, because 8th was George Russell with 175 points and Piastri's finished with 97. So the gap there's quite big. But Piastri, as a rookie, finishing P9, getting a sprint win as well. He's had a great season.
Yeah, he has. I think that's been quite a refreshing part. It was tough that I didn't enjoy the first part of the season, maybe, just because I didn't think there was much going on. Red Bull looked like they were going to win every race. Like, that was apart from one, it looked like a very real possibility. It was a real possibility. It required a mental track in Singapore, mental conditions, to deny them that. And it's mad, like, to think, when you really do think about it, Perez won 2 of the first 4. So Max has won 17 out of 18 races since. That's mind-blowing. So it's a good job we got that It's a good job we got that battle further down the pack, outside of Verstappen and Red Bull, because otherwise it could have fallen very, very flat the season. So I'm happy. I think the season has been, on the whole, it's been a different season. I think that's what you said just now, a different season. Lots of new tracks, new stuff going on, new sprint race format. It's been different, hasn't it?
Yeah, different is the best word to describe it, but I think overall everyone will be pleased with how it's worked out, and you can complain as much as you want about Verstappen and Red Bull being so dominant, but the only thing you can do is praise them, because it is an incredible achievement to do that well in across the 22 race period.
Yeah. Well, Toby, this is normally the part where I'd ask for your predictions for the next race. Unfortunately, we haven't. So let's just throw it out there. Who are you going for next season?
Oh, let's go for Max Verstappen. I think that's the clear safe bet at the moment.
4 in a row.
But let's chuck Lewis Hamilton into the mix as well, and see if anything can kind of brew from that.
I think we need Mercedes to have a good winter, come back strong in the new year with this new philosophy, because otherwise, I think personally, Ferrari, Mercedes are the only ones who can stop Red Bull, in my opinion, long term. So, anyway, Toby, it's been an absolute pleasure. We'll be back for our end of season awards next week. But until then, have a great day, and we'll see you soon.